Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
Lots of stuff happened since the last time you and I spoke.
Yeah. And not the least of which is changes to the banned and restricted list.
Many changes, many changes.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta switch it on them. You know? Flip mode is the greatest. So, it looks like standard... I mean, dude, when was the last time... First of all, when was the last time we saw standard, modern... We saw three formats get... three of the tournament competitive formats get their list changed at the same time.
Don't recall. Not at the same time.
Without having any of the cards overlap either. Because it's, I get it, Treasure Cruise banned in all formats, right?
They didn't put Treasure Cruise in all formats at the same time, did they?
So, standard.
Yeah.
Dude, here's a funny little quirk. Do you realize the unbanning of Rampaging Ferocidon is the first time in standard history that they've actually announced an unban?
I did not know that.
How crazy, right? Now, there have been some cards that have gotten unbanned, but the way they've gotten unbanned is by being reprinted and not rebanned. So, Feldon's Cane, for instance, was restricted, and when it got reprinted, it didn't get its list. They just didn't say anything. They're like, oh, yeah, you can just play 4. It's not on their list.
Yeah.
And so... There's never been a time, however, in which Standard has actually had anything that was still legal while it was banned or restricted, and it was unbanned. So that's kind of, crazy, right?
Ferocidon, this guy has got he's got a hot little story. He's got a lot of things special about him, right? So Rampaging Ferocidon is 2 and an R for a 3/3 Menace Dinosaur, and for a card that was from Ixalan, maybe you don't remember him, 3/3 Menace Dinosaur for 3. Players can't gain life, and when another creature enters the battlefield, Rampaging Ferocidon deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. This guy was in legal and standard for about 15 seconds, then was banned. I don't even remember why he was banned. I feel like he wasn't
Mono
even that
Red
great.
It was collateral damage for ramming up ruins.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Ferocidon has a problem, right?
Those were different times.
The banhammer was flying like crazy, though. I mean, energy stuff and lands and all kinds of stuff was getting banned. And I always thought it was weird because I thought the Ferocidon's okay, but it was not even the best 3/3 red creature for 3 you could be playing in the span of that year. So he's unbanned now, but weirdly unbanned for about he's appears banned about 15 minutes into his career, then long stretch of being banned, unbanned with 3 weeks left to go before standard rotation, but he also has an asterisk. So he's only unbanned in best of 3, but still banned in best of 1 on Arena.
Really?
Really?
That's so wild. You're right, because I guess the next one there doesn't change until... No, he's getting unbanned in best of... I thought he was getting unbanned in best of 1 on September 4th. So he'll only have a week and a half. A couple weeks of being legal.
No. He's banned... unbanned in best of 3 on Arena on September 4th, but will remain banned in best of 1 play.
Wow. What an intense, bizarre mix of things.
He's the Michelangelo of banned dinosaurs. He's had every experience that no one else has ever had.
Dude, cowabunga. So Rampaging Ferocidon's got a lot of things going for him. First of all, 1, good types. This is a really good time for dinosaurs, and Rampaging Ferocidon's pretty well built. Lives through the marauding raptor.
Yep.
Sure
does.
Players can't gain life is really good metagame-wise right now, too, as an answer to Orzhov.
And I mean, not just living through his fellow 3 toughness red dinosaur, 3/3 is a good body when I think the mode creature in standard is a 2/2 of some kind, right?
Yeah, I think so too. And I think 3/3 Menace is no slouch. You know?
Yeah.
This is a good card. This is also a meaningful addition to the already good Jund Dinosaurs archetype. Easy on the mana too.
Oh, really easy on the mana. So I think that I mean, I don't know where everybody's brain goes, but I'm like, there's another 3/3 for 3 that you can play in red decks. But he's not just for red decks. You can play him in like Gruul and Jund Dinosaurs, like you said. Probably could find a home in, I don't know. So like, he's like a wackadoodle card you bring in Planeswalker or something. You know, like he can as a foil to another strategy. You know, like I think that's a lot of potential shine. Now, clearly, he's punishing somebody who's putting a lot of creatures into play. I think that's one of the reasons why they unbanned him, right?
Yeah, and let's just be serious. This is a silly, silly card to be banned.
Yeah, it's not that powerful.
I happen to think there's a lot to be said about the conspiracy theory that Rampaging Ferocidon being unbanned is in some ways a precursor to the postmodern format allegedly coming to Arena in the future, where you'll be able to play with all the cards. So it'll be like, you know how like right now Modern has so many sets that are never going to be on Arena?
Yeah, like you're never going to have like a original print Arcbound Ravager, right? Like it's just too far in the past.
Right, but their Arena is going to have a new format, allegedly, in which, and this, unconfirmed, but they're going to have, allegedly, a format where you can just play with all the cards. Which makes sense. This postmodern format looks like a good time.
See, I think, I don't know, just riffing on that, like, I feel like that would just catch fire for Paper Magic also if it ends up being popular on Arena, right? Like, doesn't that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can imagine...
Particularly if you don't have to play with fetch lands.
Yeah, just play on FNM or whatever. Like, I think that makes sense. It's going to be so weird, like, a couple years in the future when Arena's had more years under its legs, to have, like, Arena and Moto really be parallel. Like, Moto's, like, this weird MySpace right now. You know how, like, MySpace and then, like, Facebook came? But then, like, MySpace kind of got its own identity as, like... I mean, instead of being like the terrible Facebook, it just became like this place where musicians went or whatever. I feel like Moto is like, it's like MySpace. It's just like...
I don't know, man. I think you're stretching there because at the end of the day, Moto is where you play Modern.
Yeah.
That's its identity.
I mean, people still play Standard Leagues there too.
Yeah, for now. But Rampaging Ferocidon, I think it's a good unban.
This guy's life. He's that guy. He's that guy who tried to commit suicide by a jaguar, but ended up killing the jaguar and then like rowboated across the Atlantic with his girlfriend. You know that guy? He's like the precursor to Schuler. They said he was the real world's most interesting man. Anyway,
okay, dude. Guy. Modern, however, as we were just speaking to, I believe you, and that guy sounds pretty dope. But I know some interesting folks. Modern is a format that has also received some changes to the list. First and foremost, to the surprise of no one, Hogaak Arisen Necropolis. Dude, I don't know. Is there anything to even say? Like, what about Av?
I mean, obviously, Av, but I think that it's probably just worth highlighting. If the last three, there were 3 American Modern Grand Prix in the month of August, and Hogaak occupied 5, 3, and 5 spots in the top 8s respectively, including 2 wins. And the one that it didn't win came in second, and the guy who came in second won the third one. Like this is like, I don't know. There's been some ridiculous formats in Magic, but like 3 Grand Prix, 5 in the top 8, 3 in the top 8, 5 in the top 8 with a win, 3 in the top 8 with a second, 5 in the top 8 with the second to first. That's like some Hall of Fame villainy here.
Yeah, but the good news is that Hogaak will live on in Legacy, where it's already. I think Hogaak is ready to make the jump.
Oh, he's going to be a nonsense guy in Legacy? I hadn't even been paying attention.
Oh yeah, and I think Hogaak's got chances at Vintage.
Huh?
We'll get to that. So, Faithless looting being banned too. That's a game changer, right? Like, finally, first of all, obviously, if you just ban out the Hogaak deck, you're going to really have some issues with the Phoenix stuff, I think. But second of all, looting is like a problem in every deck it's in. It's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at looting, I think it's like the definition of a card that problem is the wrong word from what I'm trying to communicate, but it's just like it's the definition of a card that you don't want to exist. Maybe that's a problem, right? Like, it's a forest in a mono red deck. It's a major enabler in like 2 different graveyard decks, and it's just passively the central enabler of Phoenix. Death Shadow and mid-range Mardu decks just play it too. Like,
or Storm decks.
Just play it.
Whatever. Yeah, so first of all, the first question is, if Hogaak and looting are now banned along with Bridge from Below, now is it enough? Now is Dredge no longer a tier 1 deck?
I don't think that, at least in the short term, there's going to be a lot of takers on that strategy. I think that not only are we going to see the format kind of stretching itself a little bit, which is very welcome from my perspective, but something else happened in addition to the bannings of Faithless Looting and Hogaak that I think...
But wait. I hear you, but hold on. I do have a hot take.
Okay.
I think Dredge is tier 1.
Oh. Tell me more. Like cathartic reunioning? Is that the...
Yeah. Yep. We're going to have to go rewind the tape a little bit. But, like, if you think about it for a second, Hogaak wasn't legal before Modern Horizons, and Dredge was high tier 1.
Yeah, like second best deck in the format, approximately, right? Give or take
one of the best, right? Yeah, depending on the week too, right? So, Bridge from Below wasn't a ubiquitous staple. It was used frequently, but not always. You could make the lists without Bridge. Faithless Looting was obviously a staple.
Yeah.
But they have alternatives. You replacing Faithless Looting in that style, once your deck has like Conflagrate and Life from the Loam and all that stuff, it's not like Faithless Looting versus Cathartic Reunion is game over. It's worse, definitely. It's definitely worse, right? Or Tormented Voice or whatever you got to play now. It's worse, but like the Hogaak deck needed looting because you're going to kill them on the second or third. You're going to have such a dominating board position in the second or third turn. This deck's a little slower. It's robust, but
it maybe is a little slower. I have a hot take for you, a very hot take. What about Burning Inquiry? That costs the same.
That's one of the options. You can play the Hollow One stuff.
I just in Dredge. Like, those guys are maniacs. Maybe. Just pitch whatever. Who knows? The other thing about Burning Inquiry, which I think, if you haven't actually played against Burning Inquiry, people don't realize this. It is an annoying bit of disruption for the opponent, right? Like, if you keep like a 2-land hand, like sometimes Burning Inquiry just like mana screws you. It's horrible. It's like decks that have like very specific land setups with fetch lands and stuff can be very badly disrupted by Burning Inquiry. It can disrupt the early balance of your hand. If you have like a key card, like let's say you're playing some guy like a Lotus Cobra or, I don't know, like you have a key card that you want to play on turn 2, whatever it is, or on turn 1, like your deck. What if your hand stinks except for you had an Aether Vial? So you're like, all right, this hand is going to develop. But then they Burning Inquiry your Aether Vial while setting up their graveyard. That's very disruptive.
Yeah, I mean, you're just describing Burning Inquiry as if it was Faithless Looting plus Hymn to Turok.
I mean, it feels like that sometimes. I think that like I really don't enjoy playing against Burning Inquiry because of that, and I feel like helpless to plan. I feel like when I'm playing against discard in general, like depending on what kind of discard it is, like I could do tricky stuff like, ooh, I'm gonna hold something so when they thought sees me, I'm gonna instant them or they're gonna miss. Or like if I'm playing against Blightning, I'm like, all right, I know which 2 garbagey cards I'm gonna sandbag so I can keep my good card, right? Like those are the things that are in my head. Against Burning Inquiry, you're just helpless. I'm gonna draw something and I'm gonna discard something and it's all dice.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great card to be good. I hope it's not good. But I don't know if the style of Dredge that... I mean, I think you got to play that kind of thing in a Hollow One deck. But, like, I think if you're just playing, like, some Prized Amalgam Dredge deck, you might not need to. But I think the Hollow One deck's good, too. I think the Graveyard aggro decks are going to still be big and that they're initially going to get a boost. Not a boost compared to the Hogaak deck, but there's going to be a boost in the form of people playing a little bit less Graveyard Hate than they were.
Oh, wow.
It's going to take people a minute, but...
I was thinking a lot less Graveyard Hate. I removed all the Graveyard Hate for my sideboards.
I think that's a giant mistake. But I think that I think you're going to be surprised at the number of people who just copy lists, and the lists were made during the Hogaak era. But anyway, I think Dredge will still be good. I think one of the things to really watch for is what kind of decks will benefit from the fact that the Phoenix decks are going to be toned down so much, you know. But obviously the big thing, once you take, you know, Hogaak and Faithless Looting, the 2 stone cold killers that they are, once you take those 2 and you're like, okay, I get it, we were expecting that, the wild card of Stoneforge Mystic making its grand return, joining Jace the Mind Sculptor, finally back.
Wait, is this a return or a debut?
Well, it depends. You see, Jace the Mind Sculptor and Stoneforge Mystic were both legal in the very first Modern. They were banned before the first Modern Pro Tour.
Ah. See, I think of Modern debuting in, I think it was a Philadelphia Pro Tour.
Philadelphia,
You
right.
played Twin. Am I remembering this
Yeah.
right? You played Twin. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, Stoneforge Mystic and Jace the Mind Sculptor were actually legal at the onset of Modern and or just leading into it, going into it before. You see, Philly was supposed to be extended during the double extended period, and Stoneforge Mystic and Jace the Mind Sculptor were both legal, and it was just going to be, they had just had to deal with Callblade and Standard, and then they printed Batterskull, and it was just going to be full-on Callblade in double Standard, you know, the extended Modern, that thing. And then when they switched to Modern and made the whole Modern format, they're like, well, let's just not have Stoneforge Mystic and Jace the Mind Sculptor here. And 20 other cards, but...
Yeah. It was weird. The original Modern was crazy, right? Like, they didn't have enough answers. So, like, the combo deck...
Hypergenesis was pretty good.
So good in the early Modern, right? And they preemptively banned all the good fair cards.
So, Stoneforge Mystic being back is definitely that's a powerful card that has applications in a lot of different ways. First and foremost, what do you think of Stoneforge Mystic, the way that everybody's going to, not everybody, but one of the most common ways people are going to be drawn to, which is in some sort of a Callblade strategy?
I think, well, I don't know if I would necessarily use like the word a Callblade strategy, but are you saying like a Stoneforge Mystic plus Jace the Mind Sculptor sort of, you know,
I don't even, maybe
Jace
count? I like Jace the Mind Sculptor. I personally would be interested in playing it, but I think it still works whether or not you play Jace the Mind Sculptor. But I agree, it is a Stoneblade deck I'm speaking of, not so much the actual Squadron Hawk necessary. Maybe it's right to play Squadron Hawk. It'd be dope if it is, but it might not be.
I mean, I don't even think that Squadron Hawk is the preferred source of 1/1s that I would want to play if I were to play Stoneforge Mystic in a blue-white deck. Like, I think that there are, you know, it's not just what's my plan, right? Like, that's cool. Like, I have Stoneforge Mystic as a powerful card. It is, in a sense, like a self-contained strategy, right? Just I play for Stoneforge Mystic, and it implies all these other things. If I can start bouncing it with either my own Jace the Mind Sculptor or perhaps my own Teferi Time Raveler, which I think is probably a pretty natural pairing.
I think that's an incredible combo, and that's part of the reason why I think Jace is going to be a little less popular.
But like, even if I have all those things kind of going on, that's all implied together. That's not my preferred source of 1/1s. When I'm going this route, I'm like, all right, this deck is powerful. No matter which way I go with this, I've got good stuff. What I want to do is start sanding off my angles. I think that I would rather be equipping Timely Reinforcements tokens or perhaps Lingering Souls tokens than Hawks.
See, I think both of those could be okay. I don't want Hawks either. I think that I just want to start with 4 Stoneforge Mystics, 4 Snapcaster Mages, and maybe a Vendilion Click.
See,
maybe not.
I think that I didn't even think about playing 4 Snapcaster Mages, which is a silly thing to say out loud. But I was thinking like Stoneforge Mystic and Click were going to be kind of like the actual summon type cards in my deck. I mean, clearly Tiago Chan is going to be a good contributor there. You think 4 for sure? I feel like I might have a lot of walkers. That's the thing. And like there's like
I don't know. I don't think.
And...
Yeah, I don't know. You want a lot of walkers. It depends. The more walkers you play, obviously you go the other way with it. But I think there's a lot to like about Lightning Bolt and Lightning Helix. And I think when you play Lightning Bolt and Lightning Helix, it becomes super easy to play the Snapcaster Mages.
I mean,
and I think Teferi plus Snapcaster
aggro deck, you know. I mean, sometimes.
And I think Teferi plus Snapcaster Mage is a pretty good combo too.
Heck yeah.
And I still like Cryptic Command and Force of Negation.
So I like Force of Negation in the main deck in this strategy.
I just think with the way the Modern's going to be, I think Force of Negation is like a reasonable option. I think that the ability to use Force of Negation to force through either your Teferi, your Snapcaster Mage, or your Stoneforge Mystic is just such a big game. I think Force of Negation is disproportionately good in Stoneforge Mystic decks compared to blue-white decks that we've seen previous. It's just so high leverage to protect your Stoneforge Mystic so that you can cheat down Batterskull.
Yeah,
you know?
I guess if you're just actively spending mana on your own turn, right, then Force of Negation gets so much better, right, than in decks that are just like passively passing with their mana open.
I still like Spell Pierce too.
I love
Spell Pierce. I don't know. I think either Force of Negation or Spell Pierce, they're both interesting options.
I think I like Force of Negation. I don't know how much I love it in the main. I think like I don't know, like this deck that just the cards were saying it's like not really a deck yet. The cards were saying just everything's just building card advantage. I guess maybe you can just give up a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's the amount that the high impact battles here matter. But there's some other cheap options that I think we got to consider. Like, isn't Spell Snare going to just be great? It's a great card anyway.
Fantastic. I know this is going to sound silly to you, but I was thinking about playing a Spell Snare in my red deck. That's how good I think Spell Snare is going to be.
Wow. Okay.
That's Spell Snare in my red deck. In the main.
Yeah. What do you think of for actual equipment? Like, obviously, I think you want to have a Batterskull.
For sure.
Right? Like, Batterskull is just unreal. But are you a one-sword guy, two-sword guy? Which swords?
I think I'm a War and Peace guy.
You're a War and Peace guy?
Yeah.
That was not one of the first two I was going to be interested in. Wow. Why do you want War and Peace?
I don't know. I want to hit people. War and Peace hits pretty hard.
Huh.
There's a couple. Obviously, there's a couple different ways to go. Like, I think Fire and Ice is the most powerful of the swords, right? Like it
is it?
I think so. On power level, yeah. I mean,
you're saying it like it's clear. You think Sword of Fire Ice is clearly stronger than Sword of Feast and Famine?
I think that I believe Sword of Fire and Ice is more powerful than Sword of Feast and Famine. Yes.
Let's walk through the two modes here. Like, you get a shock and a card draw. So the card draw, I'll grant you, is a little bit better than them having to discard a card. But you're saying you like the shock better than early harvest?
I mean, it...
Or are you in for the protection from red and protection from blue is enough better than protection from black?
So, here's the thing. I actually think that I'm a one-sword guy, right, in the main. I'm a Batterskull and a one-sword guy in the main. You're going to pick your sword. I think that you pick your sword more based on who you want protection from than the proactive ability. So I think like it's plausible to want body and mind, right? Because body and mind is largely like the kind of red-headed stepchild of the swords, but it's the one that had, a lot of legacy play, for example, because you want to get past those color of creatures. You don't think that's a plausible way of thinking about it?
It's a way of thinking about it. I just don't think it's right.
So you want Feast and Famine?
I don't know that I don't want Sword of Fire and Ice. I want one of those two because those two just seem so much more powerful than the other ones. And whichever one of those two I don't play, I want in the sideboard if I don't play them both main deck.
So how many swords do you want to play in the sideboard?
1 or 0, depending on how many I play in the main deck.
So talk me through what would you you've got the time ticking down. You're registering your deck. Where are we biased at least right now?
What colors am I? Am I blue, white, Esper, Jeskai, Bant? What am I?
I'm saying Azorius, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, or actually,
okay.
You were actually implying Lightning Bolt, Lightning Helix. Maybe you're Jeskai. If you want to be Jeskai, be Jeskai.
Because if I'm Jeskai, I lean Sword of Fire and Ice. If I'm blue-white, I think I might lean Sword of Feast and Famine.
So opposites, basically.
Opposites?
Maybe that's...
Maybe.
I feel, it feels
I don't know.
to me.
Okay, I just think it's about the fact that I think Azorius is going to use my mana on my main phase. I'm going to play more walkers, and I'm going to want to use my untap from Sword of Feast and Famine.
Yeah.
Whereas Jeskai, I'm going to care more about the damage from Sword of Fire and Ice, more about the protection, and more about the extra cards, so that I can just get more material that way rather than from my walkers.
So
plus, if I'm playing Azorius, you better believe I'm Jace the Mind Sculptoring people, and I'm gonna Jace the Mind Sculptor, bounce your guy, and then sort of Feast and Famine to make you discard it. What up?
Oh, that is a powerful combination. So Sword of Feast and Famine, the black part of Sword of Feast and Famine is kind of comparable to the blue part of Sword of Fire and Ice, right? And then
it's comparable, but I do think that the drawing a card is better.
Agreed, of course. I mean, the situation that you just described is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So let me give you my case for Sword of War and Peace, which I don't think people are going to be really popular. That's not going to be a popular one. So Sword of War and Peace, the equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from red and white, right? So if Feast and Famine is black and green and Fire and Ice is blue and red, this one's red and white. Its abilities are whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, Sword of War and Peace deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand, and you gain 1 life for each card in your hand. Like this card creates a lot of distance. And it hits so hard.
You are so hypnotized from being a red player. Of course, Sword of War and Peace is the stone cold nuts against a mono red deck,
or a red white deck. I mean, either one. I can't get past it.
Dude, you know what card has protection from red? A Stoneforge Mystic with a Sword of Feast and Famine on it.
You got me there.
I don't know. I think Sword of War and Peace is pretty good. It's possible that the metagame could be in such a way that you just care about the racing, because it is a turn faster. So if it really comes to that, I just am not so sure it's going to come to that because I think I guess I just believe in Force of Negation a little bit more.
All right.
Either way, a lot of action there. What do you think of like the use of black for Lingering Souls? Once you do that, are you going to go the route of anything like Inquisition of Kozilek or Thoughtseize?
I think that there are two different decks you can play. Right, one of the decks is just kind of the Tom Martell Grand Prix winner from back in the...
You're talking about just straight Azorius, but with Lingering Souls.
Just got like one black land for Lingering Souls, basically. Like, I think that's a potential strategy, and then you've got like a much more Esper type deck that utilizes discard for disruption. I think that probably the discardy one probably just has more creatures in it. So if you're going to go like a real true black deck, I don't see any reason why you might not want to be toying with cards like Dark Confidant, right? Like, and the Dark Confidant into Inquisition of Kozilek, that works well in a lot of strategies, right? Whether or not you're with Azorius. I think that if you're going to go the Inquisition of Kozilek route, that's cool, it's a great card. I think that you just want to have a very differently constituted deck than. I think the just black for Lingering Souls, that feels to me like a control deck that is finishing with Stoneforge Mystic. Like, Stoneforge Mystic is kind of like a delayed blast 2-mana Baneslayer Angel in that deck versus, part of a creature package that is actually seeking to attack in the mid game. That's just from obviously both of the decks are going to be able to play different modes depending on how, if the opponent's mana screwed, you just lay out your Stoneforge Mystic and sword them to death, even if you're the control deck. But that's not how they draw it up in the locker room.
Yeah. Does Tasigur do anything for you?
I hadn't even thought of Tasigur. Yeah.
Tasigur seems pretty good. Tasigur is another. Yeah, Tasigur is another one that works well with Sword of Feast and Famine.
For sure. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's perfect.
It's a really good combination, I think. I also just like Tasigur in a Stoneblade deck anyway, where you can like play out your Tasigur and keep your mana up. Like the ability to be able to make plays like that, it sort of naturally does similar things to like adjacent things to Stoneforge Mystic.
Oh yeah, it's like the Simic Flash deck in Standard, right? Like, you just put yourself in a position where the opponent has to play into you. If they don't do anything, you get them with card advantage, and if they do something, you get them with permission.
Plus, it's not like Fatal Push is a bad card for Esper, right?
Oh no, it's great. And I mean, just on the topic of Fatal Push, it's not like Tasigur can get Fatal Pushed. Ever.
Right. What about Narset? Does Narset do anything for you? Stoneforge Mystic, cleverly dodging Narset.
I don't know. I think that there's a limit to the number of 3-mana Planeswalkers I want to play, and Narset rates behind Teferi for me. I mean, Narset is great. It's just, I don't know. I have very little experience playing with or against Narset in Modern. I'm thinking I'm very excited to play Teferi, not so excited to play Narset, though.
Yeah, I'm a little cooler on Narset now, partly because I think that Geist of St. Traft makes a more attractive sideboard card than Narset in a Stoneblade deck.
Oh my gosh. What about, I hadn't even thought of that guy in Forever. Why don't we just play him? If you gear up Geist of St. Traft, I mean...
You got to be careful. So I think one of, probably the day one 2 best decks are Jund with Liliana and Ren and 6.
Which Liliana?
And then Liliana the Edicts, your Geist, yeah.
Okay.
And then Grixis Urza. And so, I think you got to be a little bit careful about Geist of St. Traft right out the gate. That said, it could be okay, but I'm not convinced. But it's a reasonable option. Here's another one that I think we should consider. We talked about Vendilion Click already. But I think Spell Queller is an underrated 3-cost. I mean, Spell Queller is a great way to wear a sword or something.
I was thinking about Spell Queller just yesterday with the announcement. So here's the thing.
Well, actually, one thing I want to note before we pass it, though, part of the reason I like Spell Queller so much is that I'm actually off Vendilion Click, at least as a main deck card. I just think there's going to be too many Ren and 6s.
That's a good point. I was actually thinking about, like, what are some of the unsung cards in the format that don't see a lot of love but maybe could be good? I was thinking, like, is it Staticaster is a card that is just not played very much? I mean, that card is like a fantastic solution to everything from Bitter Blossom to Timely Reinforcements, Lingering Souls tokens, like all kinds of the people just play. It's very similar to a Ren and 6 in that way, right? And it has like so many things going for it, and nobody plays it. Like I feel like that's a card I would be interested in playing in a deck that could muster blue and red. And to your point, it's great against Vendilion Click.
Yeah. I mean, here's a fun one for you. Is It Staticaster is one of my favorite cards to wear a sword of Feast and Famine. You see, Is It Staticaster does not have Defender, and it has Haste and Flash. So it's so easy to surprise somebody by playing your 0/3, put a sword on it, and now you're in business. Nobody expects a haste creature out of these decks.
Wow, man. I have a PTQ I'm playing in 2 Saturdays. I
don't think I would play Staticaster, though.
I don't know. I'm starting to feel a little swayed in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I don't think I would play it if I were you. No. But whatever you're into.
I'm into Goblin Guide. I don't know if you've met me.
So actually, on that topic, before switching gears, though, first, Manriki Gasari. What do you think of that as a sideboard option?
Oh, my gosh.
That's old school.
Deep up. Do you remember when I made that Boros deck for Manriki Gasari main deck? Woo! Yes. That won a lot of PTQs. I even had an argument with Fujita about whether in the non-trios version you just play Manriki Gasari instead of Jide. He's like, what, are you crazy? I'm like, all right, you're right. But Manriki Gasari is a super overperformer. I think it'd be fantastic in the sideboard. I mean, like, listen up, listeners. You want to win the mirror match? That's probably absolutely unbeatable in the mirror match if they don't have an answer. Just can't beat it. Right?
Pretty good.
Your entire strategy centers around getting like a key Batterskull or sword or whatever, and they just have the biggest guy in play on top of everything else. That's a great, great, great idea, Patrick. Everyone should be
quite the throwback.
What
I was going to say about the Goblin stuff has to do with another way to use Stoneforge Mystic. You see, Urza's not the only way to take advantage of the new Modern Horizons Goblin. So,
the Engineer?
Yeah, so, Goblin Engineer gets used a lot to go tutor up Sword of the Meek.
Yeah.
Stoneforge Mystic can also tutor up Sword of the Meek.
So are you thinking like still an Urza big mana kind of deck, but just utilizing Stoneforge Mystic instead of red? So white instead of red?
So one, maybe you do it instead of red, but maybe you do it instead of black. You see, it's not like you're really a Grixis deck. You're mostly just playing Goblin Engineer and Urza.
Yeah.
Right? And you want to play Teferi Time Raveler anyway, and you can play Thopter Foundry off of white instead of black.
Sure.
And so I think what you do, the only reason you really wanted black in the first place was to play with Graveyard Hate. And you can still play Graveyard Hate, but you don't need it as bad. But if you just play Stoneforge Mystic, you can use it in addition to Goblin Engineer, by the way. You can use it with the Thopter Sword combo, and you can you just have one Batterskull and one sword in your deck. Like, they're still artifacts, and like you can actually do some kind of sick things. Like let me see. To give you an example, what if you actually just goblin engineer the sword? Not the Sword of the Meek, but like Sword of Feast and Famine or Fire Ice. Go get a Sword of Fire Ice.
You just put it in your graveyard?
Well, you'll be able to get it back.
Yeah, with any whatever artifact you have, right?
Right.
You could do that.
But at the end of the day, you're going to, you're going to want to try to set up the Thopter Sword combo, everything else being equal. But I can't help but wonder if there's a way to fuse these together. I also wonder if there's some deck that's just one of those weird, like, mana, like, so like picture just like a red-white deck, an actual Boros deck that just has 4 Goblin Engineers and 4 Stoneforge Mystics. I mean, maybe that's more of a legacy thing, but like, I think Goblin Engineer is a pretty messed up card, and the possibility of playing Goblin Engineer and Stoneforge Mystic side by side, definitely something I'm going to be interested in trying more.
Do you know what the Engineer can be sacrificing in that deck? Because, like, it's not like you have so many surplus artifacts like you necessarily might in the Urza's deck. What if you were just sacrificing Aether Vial? Right, that card has, like, very diminishing returns as the game goes on. It's awesome at some point, right? But then, like, all right, these guys have done their damage. I'm just going to sacrifice Aether Vial to go get, the card that I buried.
Maybe. I mean, there's still, like, you can play a lot of Arkham's Astrolabs and Chromatic Stars, and maybe you play, like, Mox Opal or something,
Sure.
But I don't know.
The Goblin Engineer needs some fuel, right? Like, I mean, that's quite evident. Here's the thing. I was actually thinking about Stoneforge Mystic not just in blue decks, right, which is the natural place I think people's minds go to now that Jace the Mind Sculptor is unbanned. And then also, by the way, the Brainstorm ability on Jace the Mind Sculptor is just too good with Stoneforge Mystic, right? Like, you just shuffle, like, if you draw one of the artifacts, you just shuffle into your library and then go get it with Stoneforge. Come on. How is that fair?
Pretty good.
So I was thinking, like, what if you were playing, like, a green-white creature deck with Aether Vial? Like, or maybe not even with Aether Vial. Like, some sort of Maverick action. Like, that's a deck that has never really been explored in Modern, partially because, like, these tools were not available.
I promise you Craig Wesco has explored it.
I mean, yeah, he's all of a sudden got the best card in his deck that he didn't have access to before. But I'm even thinking, like, a Fauna Shaman might be good enough to play in this kind of a strategy. Like,
I don't know about all that.
Like, this kind of deck is, like, I think it is tough to beat for aggro decks, and you just can put together whatever tools you need to win whatever matchup you're in, as long as you're not against straight control. Right? Like, against straight control, I think it gets dicier and you need to do something fancy to beat them. But, like, you can get a Kataki. You can get whatever. And your guys are good. You're dealing with, like, Knight of the Reliquary. He's huge. And you can sort him up. You have this huge Knight of the Reliquary, and you're tutoring 14 different ways. This is, like, a very deceptively methodical deck.
Yeah, I just think Fauna Shaman might be a little slow, but maybe it's okay.
He saw some play in Legacy. That's the reason why. My vote went there.
Yeah, when you got stuff to discard, I guess I'm just thinking, like, you can just kind of keep it a little closer to the script and be like a green-white deck that has, like, for instance, Restoration Angel.
Yeah, Restoration
Angel on your Stoneforge Mystic is fantastic.
Yeah, the only thing bad about that is you're going to run out of artifacts at some point. Not the worst problem, though. I think so.
Are you?
Yeah.
Maybe.
How many are you going to play?
3?
Like, 3 is the top, right? You're going to get more than that.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, you could blank some other stuff. How many times are you going to Restoration Angel? I mean, you could play Blade Slicer. That's a pretty good... Blade Splicer, I mean. That's a pretty good one.
I don't know if
they've gained Giver of Runes recently anyway.
Oh, that's true.
And if you're playing yeah, dude.
You can hella Maverick.
Yes, it might be time. What I wonder is, why do you need green at all? Why don't you just play either
Maverick?
Yeah, why don't you play mono white? So here's a few things mono white does for you. First of all, if you want, you can go Eldrazi. You can go like some kind of mono white Eldrazi deck, right?
I'm listening.
Stoneforge Mystic seems great in an Eldrazi aggro deck.
Yeah, you can get Basilisk Collar. It's great in that.
That's interesting. That is pretty good.
Well, you collar up the Endbringer. Like what is possibly better than that?
Dude, how about Eldrazi Displacer, your Stoneforge Mystic?
What are we doing for a mana engine? Because this thing is full of expensive cards, and we're not a Tron deck.
So, for Eldrazi Temple.
Yeah. You
got and maybe play Aether Vial.
So, I mean, we can't really... I mean, how many planes are in our deck? Like 5?
It depends. Do you want to play any of those Horizon Canopy types? Because you got access to as many as you could want.
So, you need access to legit sources of colorless. That's the only thing that I'd be,
but that's what I'm saying. You can play the Horizon Canopy stuff because you've got access to 12 of those if you want.
I mean, 12 is a lot.
That's why I don't think
I think you're going to get torn up by red at that point. Like, I think that red is naturally a prey deck to you, and if you're starting playing 12 Horizon Canopies, they're going to destroy you. So,
and you can play Cavern of Souls.
Cavern of Souls. That's a good one. So you
can play Ghost Quarter if you want. You can play Sheffet Dunes if you want.
So white Eldrazi. Do you play Simian Spirit Guide in this deck, even though you're not red?
Maybe. Like, I like that kind of stuff. I think Simian Spirit Guide's nice because I think that the real question is which way do you want to go? I think you want the Simian Spirit Guide or the Aether Vial, but not both.
I 100% agree. I was thinking the exact same thing.
I think if you Simian Spirit Guide, you're a Chalice of the Void deck and you stay away from Aether Vial. And I think if you are an Aether Vial deck, you probably are interested more in something like maybe a Giver of Runes and you don't play Simian Spirit Guide or Chalice of the Void. And you just go the other way with it.
See, I think I like the Giver of Runes version. I mean, I'm just imagining right now putting a sword on a Smasher. Like, a Smasher is already unbeatable. Right? Like, you slap some protection onto that guy? Ugh.
Yeah, dude, and Thought Not Seer to help clear the path.
Thought Not Seer is also somebody who I wouldn't mind putting a sword on.
Sword of Fire and Ice, by the way. Or Sword of War and Peace. This is definitely not the deck for Sword of Feast and Famine. But I like Sword of Fire and Ice and Sword of War and Peace if you're going to play.
I actually...
Or maybe just Basilisk Collar and one of the two swords. And obviously Batterskull.
I like Feast and Famine in this deck. You have expensive stuff.
I don't know,
Smash
man.
their face, untap your stuff, cast another giant. No?
No. It's not that. I just don't think that's going to be what it's about.
I mean, like, how many hyper expensive cards are we going to have? We're going to have 4 Thought Not Seer for sure.
How often are you going to need to play more of them if you're hitting your opponent with a sword?
But you like War and Peace in this deck.
Yeah, either War and Peace, maybe War and Peace and Fire Ice. Because I think it's kind of nice to be able to... Maybe even... It's not even out of the question to play a Light and Shadow. That's not the worst. But it depends. It also depends on if you really play a Basilisk Collar or not. Because I think you play either 2 or 3 pieces of equipment. You obviously play Batterskull, and you got to play at least one sword. But I don't know. Maybe you play 2.
I mean, if you're...
I kind of like 2.
I mean, would you ever consider something along the lines of like a Loxodon Warhammer instead of a sword?
Nah.
No, just not.
No, just not enough great. Just not powerful enough.
How about what's the name of that one casting cost equipment that they played at the was it Paris Pro Tour where it called?
Yeah, definitely. No, not playing Sylvok Lifestaff.
And it was not good enough?
No, not good enough.
What about the one that you can sacrifice your guy to ping?
This isn't the right deck for it, but I like that card.
Like, is that like a sideboard option for most of the?
Nah, I don't think it's good enough there. I think it's much more if there's some sort of a Stoneforge Mystic deck that uses some sort of shenanigans with for instance, I'm not positive what it looks like, but if you were to imagine some sort of weird Obzon deck that has some combo elements, I could imagine Mortar Pod potentially even fitting in, or if you're playing a mono white deck that's not Eldrazi based. But if once you're going to play the Eldrazi, I just don't think you get enough out of Mortar Pod. I will say though that Mortar Pod plus Basilisk Howler is that's a fun time.
Well, what about if just having a tool like potentially if Infect is popular? I was thinking just like it doesn't cost any mana, right? No.
I just don't think you against Infect. It's just too slow to Stoneforge Mystic from Mortar Pod and think that's going to do very much.
Okay.
If you just drew it, it'd be fine. But I think you got to have the cards be high impact where you would really tutor them up.
Okay. Like right then and there. I think the idea that you could tutor for the Basilisk Collar and bring your deck is just too good. It gets really powerful.
What do you think of some sort of Siege Rhino deck with Stoneforge Mystic?
I love that idea.
Dude, with Lingering Souls? Being able to just play some sort of an Obzon deck that's just going to play on the merits, but you just have Stoneforge Mystic, Siege Rhino, Lingering Souls, possibly even Restoration Angel, depending on what the rest of your creatures are.
Restoration Angel sounds great in this deck. You know what's hilarious to me about it is this deck is just too good for Tarmogoyf. It might not be too good for Scavenging Ooze, but it is certainly too good for Tarmogoyf. Something
you got to be careful of. If you're playing Restoration Angel, you really got to be careful, because if you put a Sword of War and Peace on your creature, you won't be able to Restoration. Yeah. But if you use Sword of Feast and Famine, you can hit them, untap, and now you're ready for your Restoration Angel.
So, Patrick, in your imagination, does this kind of deck want elves of some kind, or does it want Sakura Tribe Elders, or just play 4 land? How does it go?
Generally, I mean, it depends. Generally, everything. I think that right now it's a really bad time for birds and elves, because I think that Wrenn and 6 is just going to be one of the defining features of the format.
Yeah, I think elves are weak too.
I don't like. I mean, Normally, I like Noble Hierarchs and to a degree Birds of Paradise. Sometimes I don't love them, but they're okay. But I think that it's a really bad time for them, and I would avoid that stuff. I would just play more land.
How about something like Search for Tomorrow or Sakura Tribe Elder? Are those things that you might want to consider? Because I think like a third turn Siege Rhino is tough to beat. It has so many things that are good about it that people underrate for the modern format. Like especially if it's ahead of schedule, it has more toughness than is easily taken care of by the common forms of removal. It is difficult to destroy with even a card like a Fatal Push, and it has enough casting cost that it doesn't even trigger cards like Eidolon of the Great Revel. I think this card's very good, and if you get it ahead of time, it's like I don't know, they just don't beat it. So much swing.
See, I just don't know how much you need it ahead of time. Maybe. I don't mind just playing it on time though, personally.
So do you imagine your first couple of turns being like Thought Seizes?
So my first turn is like a Thought Seize or an Inquisition. I want to play a lot of that stuff, and then turn 2 I'm playing Stoneforge Mystic. Turn 3, Lingering Souls or Liliana. Turn 4, Siege Rhino or Restoration Angel. Here's something else, by the way. If we're going to actually play Restoration Angels, what do you think of Satyr Wayfinder?
I love it. Sounds
pretty
great.
Good with Lingering Souls.
It's also going to be great with Taziger.
Oh, yeah. It's Taziger.
This is a very good Taziger deck.
Oh, yeah. All the way around. Yeah, I love a Satyr Wayfinder and a Taziger. And Satyr Wayfinder carries a sword with the best of them.
So, 8 Satyr Wayfinders?
8? No, I was thinking just like a couple, just so we had something else for the games where we didn't draw Stoneforge Mystic.
I mean, I'm just saying that there were 4 Satyr Wayfinders, and I blinked each one of them once with my 4 restorations.
I don't know if I'm ready for all that. But
are you like a 2 Satyr Wayfinder guy?
Yeah, I don't want to draw very many of these guys, but maybe you want more. It's just I don't think so. I think the second one you draw is pretty bad. So I don't mind a couple, but you got other 2-drops that are really competitive. You got to compare it to, right? Like Tarmogoyf, or Scavenging Ooze, or Dark Confidant, or Grim Flayer. Right, like, there's a lot of really good options.
Grim
So it's not
Flare. Oh my god, I have not thought of that guy in forever.
Grim Flare's nice, right?
Yeah, you know what I was thinking about? What's that one that he's green for a 1-drop, and then he can he's like the green hero of what do you call it? Hero of Destiny. What's that guy's name?
The Green Hero of Destiny?
Yeah, like you can put white and black into him and he gets huge.
Well, dude, what about you don't want that guy. You just want to play Hex Drinker.
All right.
Dude, if this deck just plays Hex Drinker with maybe with Knight Captain of Eos. Knight Captain of Eos is a sweet card for any of those white decks we were talking about before, the Stoneforge Mystic decks.
But I mean, you're
once you're playing
language.
Once you're playing green, dude, just being able to just go get Hex Drinker. I think Hex Drinker. First of all, Hex Drinker is pretty good anyway. That's just like a really good card, you know. And
well, he's 2-1 on the merits, right? So you just play him, and he's Jackal Pup with no downside. And then,
right.
You know, with at level 3, he's already like a 4/4 protection from instance. That's
you gotta be careful though. You got to be careful. If you make him protection from everything, he can't carry a sword anymore.
Wait, if he has the sword, will it fall off? Is that what happens?
Oh my god, dude! It's been too long on protection. Yeah, because remember, protection from protection does cause enchantments on the creature to fall off. So
yeah, I assume it would fall off then.
Except White Ward. White Ward does not cause itself to fall off.
All right. Well, I think that Stoneforge...
It's Shroud that's the one that gets to keep it in the weird scenarios.
So...
But yeah, what do you think, man? Obzon with Stoneforge Mystic?
I think that has the possibility of being the best deck some weeks, but it's going to take some time to get there. It's not going to be like some of these out of the... Right out of the box, Blue-White is going to perform in the first weeks, I think. Like, you can get a lot of stuff wrong, and the card power is there.
Do you like Tireless Tracker or Knight of the Reliquary?
Yeah, I think that I would play more Tireless Trackers than I would Tarmogoyfs in the deck that we're discussing. I think I wouldn't even play Tarmogoyf. Like, I think I'd play Scavenging Ooze. Like, I think Tarmogoyf is just a guy. Like, I mean, like, I know people have always said that, and he's a big guy for his mana. But, like, we're talking about these creatures that have, like, I mean, just on 2, Stoneforge Mystic is just so much better for our strategy. Like, up to and including the fact that this is a Restoration Angel deck. You know, and, like, Tarmogoyf is just like, oh, here's a body, and depending on the point of the game we're in, I might just lose it with no loss of value on the opponent's part. It's great sometimes, and it doesn't have the gigantic upside in certain matchups that Scavenging Ooze has always been able to command. I think I would play a lot of black. I think that I would play like a little bit of black. I'd play like mostly a green-white.
So you stay away from Liliana.
Yeah, I think I just want to touch into the
discarding Lingering Souls.
The Lingering Souls and the Black Pip and the Siege Rhino, because I think like double black is aggressive. I want to have like when I play, like I've been play testing a lot for Modern, and I'm playing against Jund. One of the things that hurts the Jund deck a lot is that they have the Scavenging Ooze, but they have like a pain land to activate it, or they don't have any green open at all because they're so devoted to black. And so, like, they have a Scavenging Ooze, and it's just exposed and never gets any value sometimes. So I'd want to be able to, if I'm playing Scavenging Ooze with 1 or more mana in play, I'd want to be able to activate it at a high frequency.
Sure. Well, dude, so obviously Stoneforge Mystic, there's a ton we can do with it, but that's not all. Working our way up the formats. Legacy, they actually left alone this time.
Yeah.
But, maybe the format's perfect. I mean, after all... didn't we just see some obviously highly representative and very just smart legacy technology succeed this past couple weeks?
Yeah, so at what do they call it? MTG Vegas, the Grand Prix Vegas that was just this past weekend. They actually had a Legacy MCQ.
MF Vegas.
Yeah, so Legacy MCQ, and Noah Pardis won it with Bomberman. Just shout out to him. This was the deck that you and I said we loved when we did that Legacy episode a few weeks ago. I was so happy to see Bomberman taking that. That's probably like the biggest Legacy event of this year or something, right? It's at Vegas. It's for a slot on the Pro Tour. Or the Magic Tour, whatever they call it now. So, pretty similar to what we've seen. Deck's got like the whole Lion's Eye Diamond, Auriok Salvagers engine for infinite mana, Karn the Great Creator, lock the opponent out with Chalice of the Void, a ton of double lands with between Ancient Tomb and City of Traders. And, just for good measure, you can super go off with Monastery Mentor, which I know is your favorite part of the strategy.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, great showing.
Yeah, shout out to Noah.
So, finally, that brings us to Vintage. But actually, one more thing I wanted to ask you about. How much do you think it matters that something I forgot to ask you about with Standard. How much do you think it matters that Rampaging Ferocidon basically just turns off Scape Shift? I mean, it doesn't completely, but it mostly.
So here's the thing about that: if you've got a lead, it's very, very bad for the Scape Shift deck, right? If you don't have a big enough lead, the Scape Shift deck is going to have some heroic finishes. What I do think is the unsung aspect of this is when you remember we were talking about the Scape Shift deck the week that Luis won that Magic Fest. Is that subtle life gain portion of the deck where it's got like a couple of lands that are all gaining you a little bit of life. The fact that it turns that off, I think, is more meaningful than people are going to give it credit for initially.
Interesting. Vintage. Some moves. First, one, Karn the Great Creator is restricted. Another casualty to Mishra's Workshop. And Mishra's Workshop can't even play it, but Karn the Great Creator is just busted because it just turns out it's like a one-sided null rod that wins the game on your. I mean, whatever. Yeah, Karn the Great Creator's messed up. You know what else is messed up? Mystic Forge. You know why? Because Mishra's Workshop. What a weird card. Why do they just keep allowing Mishra's Workshop? But whatever.
I think that it's like one of the features of Vintage. People in play Vintage want to do crazy stuff. That's what they want, right? Isn't that the experience that they want from their format? They don't want to have like the slow grind of block constructed.
But yes, Mystic Forge, the experimental frenzy for the workshop decks.
I love Mystic Forge, and I'm happy that it's been doing well in so many formats. It's exciting to me.
Dude, what do you think about Mental Misstep? Finally restricted. I'm a big fan of that one, actually.
Right, so
I was getting kind of tired of that one.
Previously, you could play 4?
Oh, not only could you, it was really good too.
I assume so. Did people who were not blue play 4?
No, because they usually play Chalice of the Void.
Got it. Yeah, so, I mean, that seems like a pretty reasonable decision. I remember when Mental Misstep was first printed, that card was like a ruiner of Legacy, and it was getting there in Standard. They banned it real quick in those formats.
What do you think of restricting it at the same time that they unrestrict Fast Bond?
What is up with unrestricting Fast Bond? Zvi told me when he saw these, like, his response to that was fun. So, yeah, I think Fast Bond is a crazy card to be available as a 4 of. But maybe people don't play enough land in Vintage. I don't know. The Vintage decks don't have a lot of land, right? So,
Why, dude, Gush is legal.
Oh, there you go. It's legal as a 4 of?
No. Just one.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe it's not that dangerous. It may be one of those things where our initial reaction when Bloodbraid Elf and Jace the Mind Sculptor were released in Modern was like, oh, these guys are going to dominate. They haven't dominated. They've contributed. But like I don't think Fast Bond is going to go crazy. I don't know. I don't play a lot of Vintage, so my opinion is not particularly well formed, but it just doesn't seem like the the most broken thing you can do in this format that has so many broken things you can do.
What about Crucible of Worlds with Fast Bond?
Oh. Like, if you've got, like, a fetch? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
That's a lot of life.
All right, what about if you have Zernorb? You don't even need a fetch land, just Zernorb, Crucible Worlds, Fast Bond.
Love it. That's the win, right?
Well, no, it's unlimited life.
That sounds great to me.
What about Fast Bond with Yawgmoth's Will?
Talk to me about Fast Bond plus Yawgmoth's Will. I'm not. You're just playing the lands out of your graveyard.
Yeah,
okay.
And a lot of them.
Provided you have a lot of lands in your graveyard, it allows you to do so. I mean, Yawgmoth's Will in Vintage is a catalyst for doing something like that anyway.
You can play the creature-based Crucible of Worlds too, if you just want to have more of that stuff. Let's see. There's also Fast Bond with Storm Cauldron. Every time you tap your land, you get a mana and then it goes back to your hand.
Is the Storm Cauldron a popular card in Vintage?
Not at all, but they weren't allowed to play with 4 Fast Bonds. One of the godfathers of Magic strategy, Eric Taylor, won the first Legacy Championship back in the mid-90s, using a deck with 4 Fast Bonds and 4 Storm Cauldrons, and it was like a Necropotence, Dark Ritual, Drain Life, Hymn to Turok deck, you know?
Oh, so this is like a progenitor of combo, right? Because that must...
This was before Bloom Drain.
Yeah, I was going to say, it must have been before Mike Long in Paris, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds exciting. I mean, that's a 5, though, right? Storm Cauldron?
It is, but Workshop. What about Courser of Kruphix with Fast Bond?
I mean, I love that as a concept. Are people playing a lot of Courser of Kruphix in Vintage?
Well, no, it's just you could play some weird deck that has like 50 land or something, 44 land or something.
Do you know where my head goes when you say Courser of Kruphix and Fast Bond? Some sort of an Enchantress deck. Those are both.
It's interesting.
Enchantments.
How about Fast Bond with Life from the Loam?
I need something else, don't I?
A lot of land. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess if I'm cycling and bringing back Life from the Loam and then just playing the land, no, that's not how that works. I think this is less intuitively busto to me than some of the other combinations you've suggested.
What about Amulet of Vigor with Fast Bond and tap lands? Not tap lands, but bounce lands, Karuz, like the Simic Growth Chamber or whatever.
Well, if you've got a Fast Bond, a Simic Growth Chamber, and an Amulet of Vigor, isn't that just like infinity mana right there?
Yeah, you can go turn 1 land Fast Bond, and then play a land, an Amulet, and your Simic Growth Chamber, and then you just have unlimited mana.
I mean, you have like 38 mana, actually, right? Because you have to pay life for the Fast Bond.
You have a lot of mana. You're right. You don't have unlimited unless you are doing something. So anyway, I think Fast Bond's kind of excited. I still remember just jamming games of back when Strip Mine was a 4 of. Rade and I were just playing against each other, just 4 Fast Bonds each with 4 Strip Mines and 4 Wastelands, just ripping it up. Fast Bond, another great way to get Karn the Great Creator ahead of schedule, so good thing he's restricted. One last change, Golgari Grave Troll.
Dredge
good, I guess. Whatever.
Widely played sometimes, right, in Vintage.
Yeah.
And they don't even play lands, right? Like that's
No, they do. Not that many of them, but they do.
They play Bazaar of Baghdad, right? Like that's their land.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be able to play cards that cost 1, I guess, and Petrified Field, so that when people wasteland your Bazaar, you get it back.
All right. Well, Vintage for those who pay attention to that one. Lots of changes, even more changes than Modern. To be fair, almost twice as many changes. But I think that for most of the competitive Magic world, Modern is where these changes are going to take the most root. Shout out to Rampaging Ferocidon, who is still being
awesome, dude. I'm looking forward to trying out these new formats. See you next week, dude.
Sin life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge for jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state. Lost so out of